Our next session focuses on catalyzing growth, investment strategies for emerging economies in a digital future. We'll hear how emerging economies can skip the traditional growth curve and fast track into the future. And I'm so pleased to be joined by His Excellency Omar Al Olama, Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, Digital Economy and Remote Work Applications at the UAE government. Welcome. Welcome. Wherever you like. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
If we're closer, I think it might be better, right?
Sure, in case you can't hear me. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And as many of you know, the UAE ranks first in the MENA region, and it ranks third globally for government digital transformation. Your Excellency, tell us how emerging economies can really leapfrog traditional growth models through digital transformation. How are you doing it here in the UAE?
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure being here, and I'd like to commend Manoj and his vision for putting together the IGF every single year. Seeing it grow from strength to strength just shows what the UAE and India can do when they come together and focus really on a shared vision that has mutual interest at heart. Maybe the UAE's journey today is at a very interesting juncture. We are today halfway through our strategy. So we launched or announced our strategy in 2017 that we want to be a leading nation in the space of artificial intelligence, focused specifically on government use of AI. Today we're at the halfway mark, and we have 7 years left. Now, when the UAE first announced this strategy, a lot of people took it with skepticism that a country that's in a region that is not known for artificial intelligence, a country that is an upstart country, even in this domain, can hope to be a leader in artificial intelligence, but it's going to be quite difficult. There was a report that was announced by Stanford a few days ago that looked at how countries fare in the space of artificial intelligence. It ranked the UAE as 5th in the world. And India is actually 4th. So it was the US, China, the UK, India, and then the UAE. And it shows that countries with ambition, countries with drive, and countries with leadership that really has a clear vision on what they want to use and utilize technology for can create a lot of value. What it means for countries, whether it's in our region or beyond, is simply put, artificial intelligence gives us an opportunity to provide services that are far better than anything that we can through conventional development means. And I'll give you a simple example. For those of you who come through our airport, we travel to many airports around the world, and every airport you go to, there's a person there sitting down with a webcam equivalent, and they ask you to look into the camera, they take a picture of you, they run facial recognition, and you spend a few minutes, and then you're actually let into the country. Here in the UAE, you have the same technology with the same utilization, but if you have the smart gate access, you just walk through without even pulling out your passport, and it's very seamless. That is what it means when technology is done right. You don't actually see it, you don't have to interact with it. It's a very smooth experience. We try to do that on many different fronts. If you look at the traffic issue that countries that are seeing the growth that the UAE is seeing, and cities specifically like Dubai that are seeing the incredible growth of influx of people coming from around the world, the only solution is going to be through leveraging technology. You will not be able to build roads, bridges, and tunnels fast enough. You have to leverage technology to do so. So I think it's no longer a necessity, it is a requirement, and if you want to play in this new day and age, you have to deploy AI effectively.
Technology is improving our quality of life in so many ways in the UAE. The UAE has investor-friendly laws. It has strong security. It has political stability. Tell us more about the crucial variables that are required for building investment ecosystems that both attract global capital and foster innovation, such as what we're seeing here in the UAE.
So there's one thing I would say here that maybe goes against what you just stated in your question. We never feel satisfied with what we have. We never say we have this, this, and that. We actually always think about what we don't have. And we always iterate to see how we can improve. Any city, any country, any government that wants to continuously improve needs to continuously look at what needs to be done and how it can be done better. We never think that we are the best or the most capable. We always believe that there's a lot more to do. Now, in terms of numbers, I think our numbers, if you look at the influx of high net worth individuals or the number of companies that are in the UAE, they prove that we're doing something right. But did we reach our destination? I think there's still a long way to go. I once mentioned a number to a few people that were asking me about the size of business in the UAE. There are 1 million trade licenses that were issued in the UAE. The millionth trade license was actually issued recently. You just look at the number of businesses that operate here. They don't operate for this market. They operate for the world, right? So most companies that come to the UAE don't look at the UAE market. They look at the region beyond this market. And if there is one thing that we aspire to do more of, it's actually expanding the business reach of companies that operate in the UAE. And we see that through the CEPA agreement that the UAE is signing with countries. We've signed with many countries. I think there are many other countries that we should sign with. India was actually one of the first countries that we signed with. My view is that is going to be a paradigm changer and honestly a complete shift in terms of our market size and our market reach once these agreements are signed with many other players.
And the UAE has signed dozens of CEPAs, and it aspires to sign, I believe, 29 by the end of the year or by next year. I was speaking to His Excellency Dr. Thani last week about this very subject. These CEPAs have increased growth exponentially. In Iraq, for example, growth has increased by 46%. So they really are contributing significantly to the UAE economy. Tell us about the workforce. How does developing a tech-savvy workforce really contribute to economic resilience in emerging markets? And how do we develop a tech-savvy workforce?
So that's a fantastic question. The word tech-savvy changes. 10 years ago, tech-savvy was someone who knows how to use the internet and PowerPoint. Today, tech-savvy is someone who's able to deploy artificial intelligence. I think that this is a goalpost that keeps moving. It's very important for countries to continuously invest in upskilling and upgrading the talent that exists in that country. And how they can do that is through a few fold of initiatives. The first is the current requirement that people have is using and leveraging generative AI effectively. Is that going to be the only skill that they need in 5 years' time? No. 5 years ago, it wasn't that. 5 years ago, it was leveraging, for example, certain AI tools like recommendation engines, like computer vision systems and others to create tools that did not exist in different domains of government and beyond. And today, the issue is an issue of using and wielding the generative AI engines. Are they the only tool that people need to be using? No. The main skill that I think governments need to try to foster in people is critical thinking. Because if you think critically, even if you use a technology that seems to be infinite in its potential, you will understand where the limitations are and you will think critically of how to bridge that gap. Another important issue is, we're constantly blinded by the way that technology can impact our lives, but there are so many limitations that the technology has. When you are able to understand what the technology can and cannot do, you'll be able to wield it as a tool in a way that actually does not create any harm, but rather actually creates a positive advantage for you. So I think constant upskilling is required. I'll give you maybe a thing that we don't typically share. We launched a program in 2017, and we actually had the first batch come into the university in 2018 with the University of Oxford. It's called the AI program. So it's a master's degree equivalent program where people go through a 1-year training. And we expected that people will go into this training and they will become AI experts and they're going to come and take over certain responsibilities in the government and really push this forward. That did happen. However, in 2017, most people were talking about self-driving cars, computer vision, recommendation engines, very specific and basic uses of AI. When the generative AI boom came around, those people who were extremely capable could not actually migrate to generative AI. So one thing that we're now working on is how do we have yearly touch points to continuously upskill them, inform them about the new changes, and get them ready for whatever evolution the technology goes through.
Absolutely, and you would think that that's inherent in these courses, that they are advised they do need to upskill because the technology is changing so rapidly. Let's talk about public-private partnerships. They are so effective because they reduce costs and the risk is shared in PPPs. How big a role do these play in driving technological and economic progress in emerging economies like the UAE?
I think PPP is one of the only ways to go, but there are certain elements where PPP is not the answer. So if you look at customer service or customer-facing uses of AI, the private sector typically does a better job than the government. So it's very important for the private sector and the government to work hand in hand. If you look at, for example, AI for mobility, if you expect the government to deploy the self-driving cars themselves and to upgrade them and to build the infrastructure, it's going to be too costly, it doesn't make sense. So typically the model there is the government builds the infrastructure, the private sector puts the cars on the road, and they charge a fee and they pay a fee for the government, and it works. It's a public-private partnership in that matter. However, if you think about things that have to do with national security, I would actually argue that national security is a sovereign issue that needs to be controlled completely by the government. So depending on where you see the use and how it affects you in the short term and the long term, there needs to be either more or less of a excitement towards public-private partnership. There's one final thing I'm going to say, which is there is usually a business case when it comes to providing a service, whether it's healthcare or education or transportation or others. There's a business case where the economics make sense. And the best PPP models are PPP models where the business use case makes sense for the government and for the private sector. It is not a subsidized arrangement completely by the government, and it is not a market-grabbing application for the private sector where they're able to actually grab market share and then increase the tolls or the costs. So they need to look into the economics before actually agreeing on doing a PPP model.
Mm-hmm. And how would you say that investments in digital infrastructure and AI-driven strategies can really future-proof economies against global disruptions such as the myriad disruptions we're seeing currently?
Are we talking specifically about artificial intelligence or technologies more broadly?
Let's talk about both.
Okay, so if we look at artificial intelligence, today there are maybe 3 domains of AI that need to be invested in. The first is energy. I think the future of AI is going to be determined to a large extent by availability of energy. So countries that have excess energy capacity are going to attract more companies that are going to build these very intensive and very large models. Countries that do not have enough energy to power these systems are going to have a problem in the near future. So I think energy is critical. Second is at times it doesn't make sense for startups to invest in compute because the cost is very, very high and they're not able to raise enough money. There needs to be a model where, again, if we're looking at investments specifically, the government invests in building a supercomputer, building a data center cluster that startups can leverage and utilize to build, let's say, their use cases or their applications. And then beyond that, monetize it, pay the government back, or, IPO on the market and just goes on from there. So I think there is a need to do both, to invest in energy and to invest in data center and supercomputing or compute infrastructure more broadly. And then the final thing, which I don't think it's government investments, rather government subsidies or let's say programs where you're able to reduce the friction, it's related to talent. How can the visa regime be friendly? How can talent actually be attracted from around the world to upskill and to actually maybe support the local talent and the talent capabilities that are there locally, plus the programs that you deploy in your country. Now, if we're talking about technology more broadly, there are new trends and new technologies that the world as a whole gets excited about every now and then. It's important for governments to put enough investments to be able to grasp that, whether it's hockey stick growth or if in the case that it just dies down, that the governments are able to ensure that they've done enough, but if it dies down, it's perfectly fine. We see that in technologies like the metaverse, in technologies like blockchain. There are so many technologies that, or NFTs for that matter, there are so many technologies that every now and then become a very exciting trend. Some of them pick up, others don't. And this is the cycle of technology. Not every technology really does, create that impact that we expect. AI today can be in that cycle. We actually don't know yet. There's a lot of promise that AI brings. Can we actually realize this promise is a question. So how do governments invest? How do they invest effectively? And how do they ensure that they balance out between riding the hype wave and at the same time ensuring that they have the right infrastructure requires governments that are able to forecast the future, but at the same time not be blinded by whatever glitter comes from this technology and what it promises.
Moody's ranked the UAE among the top 5 fastest growing economies this year. Congratulations on that success. To what do you attribute this ranking?
Okay.
A tough question.
Well, I have so many ways I can answer this. I think the first is maybe the UAE has proven its economic resilience, first and foremost by having leadership that's able to really think far ahead and invest in the most responsible manner, regardless of whatever issues happen in our region. We live in a turbulent region. For the UAE to rank so high in this region is a testament to what was achieved. It's much easier for us to rank as a very stable economy or to get a very high rating by Moody's if we were an island in the middle of the ocean and no one is around us. Because then, the turmoil that happens around you doesn't really affect you. So I think first and foremost, it's really a testament to what the leadership was able to achieve, even in the most turbulent of regions in the world. The second, and I mean this genuinely, the UAE is a country that is not built by Emiratis that think that they are the smartest and invest their own money. It's built by the world believing in the vision and flocking to this land to co-invest and to realize a future that they can't realize anywhere else. Everything you see around you is invested by the world for the world. And there's a saying that leadership usually says here. So Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum usually says this. If you look at most cities in the world, they are cities that represent a country or maybe a small region. So for example, if you look at Ankara, it's a Turkish city. If you look at Cairo, it's an Egyptian city. If you look at Los Angeles, it's an American city. If you look at Dubai, or maybe Abu Dhabi for that matter, it's the world in the city. People from every corner of the planet have invested money, have come and put their work, their sweat, their tears to build a future for them and the people around them that they could not build anywhere else. And it's testament to that. It's testament to all of these people coming to realize a dream that is greater than their own, maybe selfish interests, or even the interests of one community. Every single community in Dubai builds for the world in Dubai.
Well, we certainly do believe in the vision, and we are grateful to be a part of it. Thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on the great work you're doing, expediting growth and really future-proofing the UAE. Thank you for being with us, Your Excellency.
Thank you.